In today's video, I'm going to show you how I took one stamp and gave it two completely different looks using the same products. I'll be creating the Christmas version, the card you see shown in today's video, but stick around to the end to see the transformation. Hi everyone, I'm Mindy Eggen and welcome to my channel. I would love it if you subscribed, liked this video, and shared it with your friends. The set that I'll be using today to create my card is the Wild Berries frame from Pinkfresh Studio. So I have the stamp, stencil, and coordinating die for this, but take a look in your stash and see if you have something similar. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this on some Hammermill Cardstock. I'm going to be inking it up with Misti Coast ink from Pinkfresh Studio, which is a light gray ink. I like to start with light gray lines when I'm going to be doing my ink blending. Now, my first mistake I want to point out and show you before I go any further is that when you're done stamping it, leave your stamp in the exact same place. I accidentally cleaned mine and removed it, so I have a little trick that I have to do later on to line it back up. But I like to leave the stamp in place so I can stamp back over the top of my ink blended image with a black ink. There are 3 coordinating stencils that go with this set, so I lined up stencil 1, and this is going to be coloring in the leaves. Since the leaves don't have any additional stencil to them, I'm going to be doing this in 2 different colors. I started with a light green, which is going to be Meadow, and I'm going to just fill in the open areas of the stencil. And then I'm going to come in with a darker green. This one is Emerald City. I'm just kind of going through and picking some spots to add that darker color to. I really want to leave in that gradation of having a light and dark color to give those leaves some dimension. Now I can remove my Post-it tape that was holding down my stencil over my cardstock, and this is going to give us almost a no-line look, which is another reason why I love using a light gray ink or even a light brown when I'm doing my initial stamping. Stencil 2 is going to be coloring in the berries. Now there's actually 2 stencils that are going to color in 2 different sets of berries, and for this I'm going to be using 2 different shades of a kind of reddish pink. So this first one I'm coming in is with Coral Reef, and I'm just using a blending brush to apply that color. So this is going to be my lighter berries. And then I'm going to bring in stencil 3 and I'm going to be using Berrylicious. Now you can also change how kind of the shading of the berries just by varying the amount of pressure that you're applying with your blending brush. So for this card, I'm obviously using very traditional colors if you want to do a Christmas card, but even with these colors, I think this would be good for an any occasion card because it's got the leaves and the berries. It doesn't necessarily have to be Christmas. Now, back here into my Misti, I had removed that stamp, but I want to stamp the black lines in here because I really want the stems to show up. So it took me a few minutes, but I lined it up back over my image. I am off just a smidge, but I think it gives it kind of a whimsical look. Now I'm inking this up with an intense black ink and I'm going to stamp that down over the image. And this is really gonna make sure everything pops. I didn't apply a ton of pressure when I was stamping this down the first time. So to make sure that I'm getting a really good impression, I am going to stamp this one more time in the intense black ink to just help make that black really look like complete coverage, kind of an even coverage of that black ink. So another fun thing I really like about this particular stamp set is that it has a coordinating die that's going to die cut all of these berries out at once. So I held that down with some Easy C tape, ran that through my die cut machine, and it happened to hold everything in place. I love when this happens because I really liked the arrangement that these leaves and berries were in. So I'm going to just leave that there for right now. I'm going to take another piece of white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to use the sparkling diamond cover plate. So this is just going to add some subtle detail to my background. And something that I've been kind of trying out of recommendation from Kathy Zilski is this Aqua Pigment in Gilded. And it is a very, I guess, would you say like a white gold? It's not super dark. It's just kind of some subtle shimmer. So I placed some down on my work surface, picked it up with a paintbrush, and added that splatter to the background. I'm using a Splat Box to catch all my kind of extra splatter, and I also like to turn the cardstock to make sure I'm getting kind of different directions. So now when I give you a close-up, you can see there's just that subtle shimmer into the background. Now, since everything had stayed in place with that die, I decided to go ahead and I'm going to pop this up. Now, this part might be a little bit tedious, but honestly, everything so far came together really quick. So adding foam squares to the back of this really isn't that big of a deal to me. I had just gone through with my craft pick and kind of poked out some of the smaller areas that were still stuck that I didn't need, kind of those in-between pieces, because it's going to be a lot easier to do that now versus when I get this attached to the card. So I'm using my foam squares. I'm placing them over the back of that. And then I can just kind of carefully peel this frame out. I'm kind of holding the dies or the die cuts in place with my finger as I peel this away from the frame. And then that's going to be a lot easier to align this over the front of my card. So I'm removing the backing of all of those foam squares. That part did take a little bit longer too, but I think it's totally worth it. And then I'm going to line this up over the front of my card front and then place that down. Now, once that is secured in place, I'm going to take that craft pick once again and just go through and pop everything out so I can peel that cover plate or that coordinating die away from everything. And it leaves a beautiful frame on the front of my card. Now, this next part, I'm going to have to walk you through how I finished off the card, which is really quick, but I thought I hit the record button. Apparently, I did not. I stamped a sentiment. The sentiment comes from the Delicate Foliage stamp set. So I have that sentiment stamped and die cut out, and I placed it in the center. And then I added unicorn stickles over the berries for a little bit of additional sparkle. So now that we have this one done, this is our traditional Christmas card. I'm going to use the same products, same technique, except all I did was change the colors. And this came out completely different, but I absolutely love it. So for this one now, I did Toffee Cardstock for my background using that same Sparkling Diamonds cover plate, but for the leaves and the berries. On the leaves, I used Clementine and Doe ink to give it that autumn feel. And then for the berries, I used Aquamarine and a little bit of that Coral Reef and Berrylicious. So same exact products. This particular Wild Berries frame was actually in a Christmas release, but just by changing up my colors, even the sentiment a little bit to fit my occasion, it gave it a completely different look. I will have all of my supplies used in today's video listed down below in the video description and over on my blog as well. I hope you enjoyed today's inspiration and it has given you some ideas in your card making. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again in the next video.